All right, here we go. The mighty return of Michael Franzese back on Vlad TV. Welcome back.
I'm back, Vlad. Here
You're
we
back.
go.
Let's go. Well, the main reason I brought you back was because at one point you were locked up with the Menendez brothers.
Yes.
And at this point, it seems like they might actually get out of prison. So before we get into that part of the story, tell me exactly how you first met the Menendez brothers in jail.
I was in federal custody and on a parole violation when the state of California, LA County, picked me up, and they were trying to indict me on basically the same case that I was doing my parole violation on. So they took me to LA County Jail, and they had me in lockdown there for 11 months while we negotiated the case. And I was on the same tier. I was on what they call death row, because everybody on that tier was facing life without parole or the death penalty, and then there was me on a parole violation. But anyway, they stuck me there. They were, whatever reason they did. And not my cellmate, but the guy next to me happened to be Lyle Menendez. And they were, I think it was 1993 when they were initially in their first trial. And Eric had been in the cell, the other cell opposite him. And he was there for about 2 months until they separated the brothers because there was an alleged escape attempt.
Right.
They found a note or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Nobody's escaping out of there. They just wanted to separate them. And so I spent the 11 months with Lyle.
Okay. So what was the first meeting like with Lyle?
Well, at first I didn't know who he was, when I got in there. And then obviously I heard about the case. But, the setup there was some of these lockdown areas, they have, a solid door, and then some have bars. Well, in the old LA County Jail, they had bars. So you were able to see the guy next to you because we had it was a very short tier, and you had like glass, so you could see the reflection of the guy in the cell next to you. And so we just started talking, He asked me, what I was there for, which is something you never ask anybody, what are you in prison for? But he was young. And then we just started talking. And then over the course of 11 months, Lyle got a lot of visits, and I got a lot of visits. So we used to go out to the visiting room together, and we just got close in that regard.
Well, that trial took years to actually make it into a courtroom. So during the time you were locked up together, that was before the trial ever started.
I think, if I remember, he was going through the first trial.
Oh.
Yeah, the one that ended up in a hung jury.
Oh, so you were locked up with him during that part?
Yes.
Okay, and this was OJ before OJ?
Just before OJ, yes.
Exactly, because this was like the trial of the century before OJ popped up and took that title. So there was all this media attention. It was crazy during that time.
Yes.
'Cause I remember, I'm old enough to remember this whole situation. So was he like the most famous person in that jail at that point?
Well, when you're in there, you don't look at it that way. I mean, we're in lockdown, we're in a hole, so you don't see much of anything at that point. But as I started reading about the case and we started talking about it and the attorneys that were involved, it was huge at that time.
Okay. And what was his personality like?
He was a kid. He was 20 years old. So he was, I seen different emotions with him. At times he was scared. At other times he was kind of, I don't want to say belligerent, but more confident and cocky about the case, that they didn't really do anything wrong. But, the bottom line on all of this is that he did finally talk to me about the abuse with his father. And I believe it. I think he was sincere. He didn't come out with this the first day, but as time went on, he started talking to me about it. And I believed it was very sincere. I mean, he was scared of his dad. There was no question about that. The way he talked about his dad was, ruled with an iron fist over him and his mother and his entire family. So he brought that out. I mean, he was scared of the guy.
Well, according to the trials, him and his brother were sexually abused by his father for many years. And that led up to them actually killing the father as well as the mother who just happened to be there.
Yes.
And then once it got to court, the whole story of this abuse came out. But if you watch the documentary or the movie, after they end up killing their parents, they were essentially free and clear. the police, the Beverly Hills police, didn't do gun residue on their hands. They didn't pop the trunk and find the guns that were in the car parked in front of the house. They weren't even suspects, even though they were the only people that were there during the time of the murder. So they were going to essentially get away with it. But then one of the brothers confessed to their therapist.
Yes.
And then the therapist got the other brother in, and they recorded it and everything else like that. The part of the story I've always had a problem with is this. At the point that they actually admitted the murder to their therapist and were talking about it, there was literally no mention of the sexual abuse from the father during all those tapings. Do you find that a little bit weird? Because that story only came out when they actually went to court.
Yeah, I mean, I can't answer as to why they didn't speak to the therapist about that. But again, I was talking to them during that trial, and he admitted it to me, and he said it to me. So, I mean, I can't answer for that, you know. I don't know why they didn't discuss it with the therapist at that time. But again, you know, I believe it. And look, I have a pretty good BS meter. You can't BS me over that period of time. I questioned him at first, you know, and I said to him, why didn't you go to your family? Why didn't you let them know what your father was doing? You don't understand, Michael. My father ruled the family. If he would have found out, it would have been worse living in the house. Why don't you go to the cops? You don't understand. My dad is, and I knew who his dad was, you know, because I was a little bit involved in the industry at that time. So he had a reputation, but he said, if it didn't work out and I had to go back in the house, I don't know what he would have done to me at that point. So, you know, listen, this is what, 30 some odd years ago? But I believed him at the time. I even discussed it with my wife. I said, these kids were abused, you know, because she was on the outside. She heard it all. And I said, there's a reason for, you know, what they did. I said, I'm not saying they acted in the right way. I mean, blowing the parents away like that, they could have done something differently. But I believed him at the time.
They could have left. They were both adults at that time. Right?
I agree.
They were both over 18 years old. Okay, so the dad didn't want them going away to college. I'm 18 years old. I'm gone. Bye. Why would I stay in a house where someone's sexually assaulting me on a regular basis? And then one of the brothers ended up sexually assaulting the other brother.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard.
That came out in court.
Yeah, well,
that came out in court. So the solution to stop getting sexually assaulted is not to move, but to actually kill both of your parents with shotguns. And then go back in the car, reload the shotguns, come back and finish the job. I'm just not buying it. I'm sorry.
Let me ask you,
I'm not buying it.
Why do you do something like that? What other reason do you have? For the money? To kill somebody in such a heinous way for the money?
Well,
your parents?
These
Doesn't
were
make sense.
Spoiled rich kids. If you look at the second trial, they had multiple witnesses that said that they would yell at their parents in front of other people. At one point, the dad got him like an Alfa Romeo, and he cussed him out in the dealership because he didn't get like a BMW or something that he wanted instead. The housekeeper said that she never saw the parents yell at the kids, but she saw the kids yell at the parents quite a bit. I think these were rich kids. The dad threatened to take him out of the will. And I think it turned into a money thing. They went on a crazy shopping spree.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was no mourning at all. It was like, okay, we got this money, let's go spend it. Like we've always wanted to do it. I understand. Listen, I've never met the guys, right? You were locked up with them. I've never had conversations with them. I'm just saying they weren't chained to the house. I could imagine if they were in the basement, chained up, and they kept getting raped over and over again, and they finally got a chance to get out, and they had to kill their captors. I get it. But they're free to leave. They have cars. They have passports. They have some degree of money. They have the police that they could go to. I don't know.
But if they really believed that their father was this powerful person, because, you know, the one thing that got me, you know, Lila said to me one time, I remember this specifically, I don't know how I'm going to go forward in life without my father. He made that statement to me. Why would you say that? And it was a kind of a weak moment when he said it. It wasn't like, He was just reflecting on certain things. And I want to tell you this. While we were there, he never admitted to me that he killed his parents. I'm sure his attorneys told him, listen, don't speak to anybody in there. The guy you're talking to could be a witness against you tomorrow, so be careful what you say. And it was only over a period of time that he started to talk to me about the abuse. He never admitted to me that he killed his parents. Never said that, and I never asked him. You don't do it. Hey, did you ever pull the trigger? Did you really do that? Did you shotgun them? In prison, you don't ask certain things about that. At least I don't. But why would he say something like that to me? I don't know how I'm going to exist without my father on the outside. I mean, he was everything to me. He said that. So it was kind of strange. And then when he talked about the abuse, I mean, there was times when I remember he had tears in his eyes about it. I mean, is he that good an actor? In fact, we're in a prison cell. He's talking to me. He's not on the witness stand. From Menudo in that letter?
Yeah. Well, the DA, his petition will ask a California court to resentence the two of them to 50 years to life on 2 counts of first-degree murder, as opposed to life without parole, which is what they're currently serving. And since they were under 26 at the time of the killings, that would allow them to apply for youth parole. And that could be done after they serve 30 years in prison, and they've already served more than that. So by them being relatively young, this is sort of the loophole that might allow them to walk away. And of course, they got popular on TikTok, and, Kim Kardashian spoke on their behalf, and
Rosie O'Donnell.
Rosie O'Donnell, too?
Rosie O'Donnell, from what I understand, yeah. I think they're going to get out, and I think they should. Listen, there's certain things that I think people should stay in prison because they're a danger to the community, when it comes to things that we don't need to discuss now, but they've done their time. They've been model inmates, from what I understand. They're both married, and I don't think they're a danger to the community anymore. They did this when they were young kids. It's a heinous crime. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But I think there are some mitigating factors there that should allow them to come back and enjoy the rest of their lives.
Well, here's the thing. They won't definitely be out because, according to the Department of Corrections, the California governor, Gavin Newsom, has 30 days to review the parole board's decision. The governor may take no action and allow the decision to stand, reverse the decision, or refer the decision to the full board for review and bank and vote at one of its monthly executive board meetings.
Right.
So Gavin Newsom could actually sway this one way or another.
He can. Well, Gavin Newsom has been soft on crime. Why would he all of a sudden take a strong position with them? He's letting people do things in the streets of L.A. He's anti-police. Why would he all of a sudden be so strict with these 2 young men? But who knows? I don't know. He's a hard guy to figure out.
But you support them coming out?
Absolutely.
Absolutely?
Yes.
Okay. You'll have them on your show and interview them and everything else like that when they come out?
Well, I'm sure they're going to have a lot of requests. You know what I mean? But yeah, if they wanted to, I would jump on with them, without a doubt.
I mean, any other interesting stories, during the whole time you guys spent together?
Well, just a couple. I mean, he would come out, when Lyle would come out, and he would wait for his visit. In L.A. County, you're behind the glass with a phone. So he would come out, and there was times when he would wait for his visit, and my 3-year-old son, Michael Jr., would go and sit and converse with him. And my wife got a little nervous about that. She said, hey, he's talking a lot. I said, don't worry about it. It's okay. And then one time, it was funny. My wife was in a market with my son, and they happened to pass by the magazine rack. And there's Lyle and Eric on the cover of the magazine, and my son picks it up and's running through the store. Hey, Mommy, there's Daddy's good friends, Lyle and Eric. And my wife said she grabbed the magazine from him and, threw him in the stroller or whatever at the time. But, other than that, and the other thing that happened is when you go through a visit and you're in SHU like that, you have to go through the prison hospital and through some of the population, right? Well, some of the guys were yelling at these 2. Hey, we're going to kill you, killed your parents. And, they were kind of yelling abuse at them. So when you're handcuffed and shackled, there's nothing you can do if somebody attacks you. But when they took Eric out, it was only me and Lyle walking down for the visit. And I was young at that time, and I'm white. Most of the people in there are, a different color than you. And they thought I was one of the Menendez brothers. So now they're yelling at me and him. You know?
They thought you were Eric?
Yeah, Eric or whatever one they thought. Who knows if they knew the difference between the two. So when I got back, I told the CEO, I said, hey, I got enough trouble being Michael Franzese. I don't need to be a Menendez brothers. Don't walk me with him. And I told Lyle, I ain't walking with you. I got a wife and kids on the outside. So just little things like that, you know. But yeah, that was a rough. In all the prisons and jails I've been in, that was the worst place. Worst. I mean, the sewer would back up. The food was terrible. It was a bad place. You know, the other guy that I was in there with, he was the guy on the tier that would, you know, bring us the food and stuff like that. His name was Neil. I forget his last name. He was one of the brothers that were involved in the ninja murders. Allegedly, they killed their parents in the valley. A ninja guy, they hired some guy to come out with a ninja suit on and shot their parents in the driveway of their home.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it was two brothers. One testified against the other. And the other, Neil, that was with me, they ended up getting life.
Now, Lyle Menendez, he was the one with the toupee.
Yes.
It looks fairly natural when you look at the pictures. I mean, was he still wearing the toupee in jail?
Yeah. Yeah, he had it on. Yes.
Can you tell it was a toupee?
I never saw him with it off, but I had my suspicions, yes.
Well, we'll see what happens. It seems like the public wants them out. And, you know, unfortunately, as time goes on, I see more and more situations where law enforcement is just reactive. If the public wants someone convicted, then they'll get convicted. If they want them out, they let them out. So it's really almost like, what's the point? You know, It's almost like social media runs the judicial system at this point, to a certain degree. So
it's running everything.
It's fairly crazy. Yeah. Well, in the hip-hop world, and we talked about this before the interview, the biggest thing that's happening right now is Chicago rapper Lil Durk has gotten arrested for a murder for hire with a rival of his named Quando Rondo, but in the process of trying to kill Quando Rondo, he ended up killing Quando's cousin. And Durk allegedly, according to the feds, sent 5 guys to L.A. To kill this guy. And him and you know, another one of his entourage members flew out in a private jet the same day. The next day, they went and got ski masks, guns, rental cars. They followed Quando's car for hours. And then when they stopped to get gas, they opened fire. They ended up killing his cousin. Quando was unhurt in the situation. And they flew back to Chicago the next day. 2 years later, all of them have been arrested, and they're all sitting in jail right now, facing life in prison and possibly the death penalty. Mm-hmm. And the charges are murder for hire, you know, use of, carry, and discharge of firearms, and a machine gun in the furtherance of a crime of violence resulting in death. It's a big mess right now. Now, during the time that you were in the Mafia, would there ever be hits that were out of town that people would take a plane to go kill somebody?
Well, it's not out of the realm of possibility that would happen. Of course not. Didn't matter what town you were in. If there was a hit on you, I mean, there was alleged hits on some people that turned informants that I knew. I don't want to mention their names, but and they were out of town. Does it happen often? No, because normally in our life, the best way to get somebody, you just walk them into a room, they don't know what's happening, and boom, they're gone. But you know what these guys haven't learned yet, and they should have learned that from us, that somebody is going to become an informant. Mm. When you got 3, 4, 5, 6 guys, inevitably one of them is going to crack, if not more. Happens every single time. And they didn't learn from what happened to us. If they seen all the guys that became informants in our life and put everybody else in trouble, they would know better. You just can't do stuff like that and get away with it, because eventually you're going to get caught and somebody's going to squeal, and that'll be the end of it. And that's what's going to happen here. Guaranteed they got informants.
Well, yeah, there was allegedly 3 shooters that actually got out of the car and opened fire. One of the shooters in the paperwork is co-conspirator number 2.
There it is.
Meaning that name is not being released, and you could assume it's because that person's cooperating. Now, if you're one of the active shooters and you're cooperating against everyone else, that's not like, oh, I heard so-and-so talking about it. No, I was actually there. I'm in the footage. Here's my plane ticket. You know, they even use their own credit cards, you know, OTF credit cards to book the hotels. There's a car rental, you know, spot they went to use one of the murder vehicles.
So they actually placed themselves basically at the scene of the crime.
Everyone is placed in the scene of the crime. I mean, one of the guys who flew in on the jet with Lil Durk, his car went to Big 5 Sporting Goods, and the GPS of the car, because it's a rental car, put him right there. He went into the store and bought 4 ski masks using cash. I guess he thought using cash would let him out of it, but it's like the car is there, the receipt is there. I'm sure that they have cameras in the actual store where you see him walking out after the purchase. I used to always say the safest thing to do if you're a rapper and you have serious beef is to move to another state, because nobody would be stupid enough to actually get on a plane to try to kill you. And I was proven wrong. Someone was actually stupid enough to send a hit squad out of town to try to kill somebody. They killed the wrong person, and they're all caught right now.
Well, that's certainly not sophistication. There's no question about that. It wasn't well thought out, obviously. I mean, that's why I said it's not out of the realm of possibility that somebody would go to another state, you know, to put a hit on somebody, but they wouldn't do it like that. That's for sure.
Well, the fact that the guy who allegedly masterminded the whole thing, he flies out the same day as everyone else, the day before the murder, because he wanted to hear it firsthand, in person, I guess, after it happened. I'm assuming this. Why even put yourself on the same coast?
Exactly.
When this is happening, at least you could say, hey, I was 2,000 miles away. I didn't know what these guys were doing.
They could have learned from Al Capone. St. Valentine's Day Massacre, he was in Florida.
Right.
You know, I mean...
So, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Oh, yeah. There's even, in the process of booking the plane tickets, there's a text message from Durk that said, don't book any of these tickets with my name.
Well, listen, text messaging, emails, all that's just... You cannot engage in any of that when you're planning something like this. It has to be so low key. I mean, I don't want to, tutor anybody on how to do it. That's not what I'm here for.
Right.
But I'm saying, I mean, it just, they didn't learn.
Well, yeah. And last week, the 5 guys involved in the hit all got indicted. They all get arrested. And then Lil Durk books 3 one-way plane tickets in an attempt to escape, allegedly. One one-way ticket to Switzerland, because I guess Switzerland might not have extradition policy. One-way ticket to Dubai that also does not have an extradition policy, and then one-way ticket, a one-way ticket on a private flight to Italy, which I'm not sure if they have extradition or not. But he ended up not getting on the 2 flights to Switzerland, Dubai, but he was on his way to the airport. He was arrested in the vicinity of the airport of the Italian flight. Now, here's the thing. Just because a country doesn't have a 2-way extradition policy with America doesn't mean they won't extradite you.
Let me verify that for you. In my case, my co-defendant went to Panama. There was no extradition between Panama and the United States, right?
Yeah.
Thought he was safe there. What'd they do? The feds went in the middle of the night and kidnapped him and brought him to Florida. If they want you, they're going to get you. This non-extradition thing is all nonsense. If they want you, they'll figure it out. The United States is going to get you if they want you, period. I believe that. So you're not safe anywhere. If you're known to be someplace and they know you're there, you're not safe anywhere. Unless maybe it's Russia because they're,
Russia,
yeah.
I've always said, you get yourself to Russia like Steven Seagal or Edward Snowden, you're good. Exactly. No one's going to invade Russia to try to pull you out.
Exactly. And Russia may not be that giving to give you over.
Oh, no. Putin would like nothing better than to have somebody America wants back.
And it's not that he cares about you. He just wants to shove it up the Americans' rear end. Yeah,
no, exactly. And if you really think about it, right? So, okay, Dubai does not have an extradition policy, a 2-way extradition policy with America. But Dubai is very friendly with America.
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions of dollars get spent from American tourists going to Dubai
Exactly.
and spending tons and tons of money, hotels, going to fine restaurants, going to the Ferrari Museum and everything else like that. You really think that Dubai, the UAE, is going to mess up diplomatic relations with America over a rapper?
Of course not.
Psh.
Of course not.
Oh, you want this guy? He's right here.
Yeah,
Here, we'll arrest him right now for you.
exactly.
Come
and get him. We're not extraditing him. You just come and get him.
Come and get him. Come and get him.
Exactly.
We're not going to, because here's the thing. Okay, you don't send him back, we'll put sanctions.
Exactly.
We'll make it hard for Americans to travel to Dubai.
Exactly. And there's no legal process at that time. We'll just hold him. You come and get him, take him out. That's it.
And trust me, Dubai, have you been there before?
I haven't.
I've been to Dubai.
I was supposed to go to Dubai the day the floods happened.
Oh, okay.
The rains, so we postponed it.
I've been to Dubai. Let me tell you. In Dubai, I didn't see a single piece of garbage on the street. I didn't see a single homeless person. You are not allowed, women are perfectly safe walking around because you can't catcall women or whatever else. I believe premarital sex is illegal in the country.
That's what I heard, yes.
But it gets more interesting than that. For example, let's just say you get into a car accident, a fender bender. You see cars like that in LA, the doors falling off and everything else like that. In Dubai, if you get a fender bender and you don't fix it within like a week, they'll take your car.
Really?
Because you're making the country look bad.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing you could do about it. There was a situation where a woman from America, it was a black female, she was like a truck driver, she had a YouTube channel and everything. She got into an argument with a man at a car rental place. I guess she felt she was getting overcharged or whatever else, and she started yelling at him. She went to jail. You're not allowed to yell at Dubai citizens, especially being a foreigner. And you could say, well, that's so unfair because he could come to our country and yell at us. Well, this is not your country. This is someone else's country with a set of rules. It's a monarchy. It's not a democracy. Nobody gets voted in. There's no freedom of the press. You can't say, screw the king, or, I hate the royal family. Right. You will get put in jail, and there's nothing you could do about it. And that's the end of that. And yeah, man, I mean, because I guess Lil Durk was over there. They gave him some sort of special gift from the royal family or something. So maybe he felt like he had an in or over there.
Well, it's not only that. He's booking tickets. I mean, they know that immediately.
Oh, no. As soon as he booked the tickets, Homeland Security alerted the FBI.
Exactly.
And that was that. Like, literally, all the tickets he booked, they were all, like, he wasn't fooling anybody. My thing is, like, what he should have done is at the point that this thing went down and the wrong person gets killed and you realize you got all these co-conspirators and everything else like that, go to a place, like go to Russia and just set up shop and just see what happens. Just stay there. And if everyone gets indicted, then you'll just be in Russia for the rest of your life.
Quietly.
Yeah,
not the way he did it, but hey, you know what? Like I said, they're unsophisticated, and they just don't know how to do things. I mean, what else could you say? It's ridiculous. You're telegraphing to everybody what you're doing.
Well, especially because you have a public beef with this guy.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows this guy was, I wouldn't even say responsible for killing his friend because the situation was honestly almost a self-defense situation. It was like, I have security. If somebody attacks me, I would expect my security to neutralize that person. Your artist was the aggressor. He ended up getting killed attacking somebody he shouldn't have attacked. You got to at some point grow up a little bit and say, hey, I missed him, but he had it coming. It's his own fault. I mean, are there situations like when you were in the Mafia, if some of your, if people from your family got killed, but once you looked into it, it seemed like it was their own fault. Like they were the aggressor and the person acted in self-defense. Was there still a level of revenge or was there a level of he had it coming?
Politics could be involved at that point in time, depending on who the people were, because there's always political stuff going on in that life. But I don't know of any situation when somebody got killed and well, it was his fault. He shouldn't have done that. If he got killed, probably should have gotten killed, based upon him breaking the rules or doing something that he shouldn't have done.
No, but what if one of your rivals killed one of your guys, is what I'm saying. One of the other families killed one of your guys.
Well, you can't do that. I mean, that's trouble. You can't kill a made man unless you have permission to do so. You can't do it. And even if the made man that got killed was wrong, you're not allowed to do that unless you put it on record with your boss and you say, this guy did this to me and I'm going after him, and the boss sanctions it. If that doesn't happen and you kill another made guy, you're in trouble.
Well, John Gotti did it.
Well, John Gotti did it, and remember, Chin went after him afterwards. It wasn't popular with what he did, but that was a coup. That was taking over the family. Yeah. It was his own family. And he said it was either his life or Castellano's life, because they had put a hit out on him, or they were going to, because of their whole drug business. So, and that wasn't popular. You don't take out a boss without consensus, and he didn't have it at the time.
Do you think in 2024 it's possible to kill somebody and get away with it?
Yes. Absolutely.
Do you think in 2024 it's possible to kill someone in a different state and get away with it?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
So what would you do different than what these guys did?
Well, that's a tough question. But listen, my father taught me something that I never forgot. He said two things. He said, if you and I were to commit a crime together, and 30 seconds afterwards you asked me about it, I'd say, what are you talking about? There's no reason ever to mention it again once it happened. Dead issue, never happened. That's it. Done. And secondly, he said, if you want to do something and get away with it, do it alone.
Yeah.
And I never forgot that. Never forgot that. So the answer, anything could be done if you do it properly.
Yeah, the fact that there are 5 co-conspirators plus some other people in the fringes that are cooperating is insane to me. I just don't know how basic human preservation would get people to say, I'm not going to snitch because people might talk bad about me. I'd rather do life in prison. I don't want to be unpopular on social media, so I'll just go ahead and do the rest of my life in this dirty jail cell.
Let me tell you this. Chaz Palminteri, you know who Chaz is, right? Dear friend of mine. We had a conversation once. There's a part in the movie The Bronx Tale where he's mentoring young Cologio. And Cologio says to him, is it better to be loved or better to be feared? And Sonny in the movie says it's better to be feared, and he explains why, right? So I asked Chaz that question outside of the film, and I said, what do you think in that life? Is it better to be loved or feared? And he said, I would assume it's better to be feared. I said, no, Chaz, you're wrong. He said, what do you mean? I said, let me tell you. Fear did keep people in line, no doubt about it. But here's what happened. When the RICO Act came out, and people knew that, hey, I'm going away for the rest of my life unless I cooperate, the fear of the mob was transferred to the fear of the government. And so guys started cooperating left and right because they want to go to jail forever. But if you love somebody, you're hard-pressed to hurt that person. At least that's how I feel. I think it's how many people feel. You're not going to hurt somebody you love. That's the bottom line. But if you're in fear of them and you don't have any reason to be in fear of them anymore, well, then you're going to save yourself. And that's what happened in my former life, and that's what happens on the street all the time. Hey, I'm afraid of going to jail. Let me tell you something. There's some people, I think, that I've heard that might have a legitimate reason for cooperating. And I'm not going to get into that. But there's others, they make all the, the life let me down, and I was supposed to do this, and they should have did this for me. We're street guys, This isn't a perfect, things are going to happen there. You know what you're getting yourself into. The bottom line is they don't want to go to jail for the rest of their life. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
How many guys do you know of that took a life in prison bid and never cooperated against anybody?
I know one for sure. My father got 50, which would have been a life sentence. I mean, if he would have lived a normal life, but he just outlived that. My dad, you could have given him 7,000 years, and he would have never cooperated. Period. End of story. That was just his principle. He wouldn't do it. Because my father's legacy in that life meant more to him than anything. And he was going to go die with his boots on no matter what. And there were other guys. Look, you know, I mean, I don't know that. I mean, there was some talk about Persico. I don't think Persico would ever cooperated.
The snake?
Yeah, my boss.
Yeah, there was a story that came out, I think a couple of years ago, that said that he actually cooperated.
I don't believe it. No, I don't believe it. I've never seen any evidence of that, nor do I believe it. You know, Fat Tony Salerno, he was going to jail. He was going to die in jail. I mean, there were guys that would have done that, without a doubt. And they're the old timers. I don't know about today. I can't say that. But there were some guys that just lived by that principle, period.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Someone mentioned in the notes, did your dad kill his brother? Is that...
That's such a lie.
Okay.
I don't know where that came from.
You know what I'm talking about, though? This rumor.
I heard it recently.
Someone mentioned it. He said, ask Sonny about his dad. Ask Michael about his dad killing his own brother. And I'm like, I don't remember him ever mentioning that before.
My dad had 3 brothers. They all died of natural causes. He was the youngest of the 4. They all died of natural causes. It was such... I don't know where... Social media, these things come out of nowhere that are so ridiculous.
Well, since our last interview... I did the first interview with the rumored boss of the Philly Mafia, Joey Merlino. I assume you watched this interview.
I did not.
You watched part of it.
I saw snippets of it because it comes up in your feed. You can't help it. Yeah.
In the interview, Joey Merlino said that you and your dad were rats.
Franzese, Sammy the Bull, I don't even know, Sicali, whatever. They're all... that fat kid, Ruggiero, whatever the fuck his name, he said they changed their life. That's what they say. Yeah, they changed their life when the fucking handcuffs went on them. Let me ask you a question. If Sammy the Bull and all them, whatever the fuck the names are, Franzese, all these rats never got locked up, where would they be right now? You tell me.
I'm not sure. Probably doing the same thing they were doing
before they got Philly and Eddie. Up. Yeah, Philly and Eddie. His mother used to love it when they called it. They used to write in the paper, Crazy Philly and Eddie. She loved it. He would be in Atlantic City. Sammy the Bull be on Mulberry Street. Franzese, now he found God. They all found God. You didn't find, when you were robbing the fucking government out of gas money, you didn't find God. You didn't go to church and give them no fucking money. You were a fucking tough guy walking around New York.
I didn't co-sign this. He said what he said, and I didn't chime in. He called a lot of people rats. He called Sammy the Bull a rat. He even told me I shouldn't interview any more rats. And I said, well, I'm not going to promise you that. But it was an interesting interview. I felt like out of all the mob interviews I've ever done, this guy was, how should I say it, definitely the most defensive. And you could take that however you want to take it for whatever reasons he had. But, the joke in the comments were like, hey, Joey, tell me about your dad. Dad, I don't know any dad. You know what I'm saying? I was locked up. I don't know anything about a dad. Never had a dad. Next question. But everything was, unless I talked to him about a specific, case that he had, that he went to trial for, a situation like his friend getting killed in front of him or whatever else. He doesn't know about the Mafia. He knows nothing about it. He's not admitting to any sort of not cooperation, but he's not admitting to any sort of membership in any sort of crime family or anything else like that. He's just a guy that likes to dress nice and likes to gamble sometimes. Do you know Joey Merlino at all?
I don't.
Okay. Have you heard of him?
Of course.
Okay. And I asked him, I said, is it okay if I start off introducing you as the rumored boss of the Philly Mafia? He said, sure. I don't know whether he's really the boss or not. Not sure. I know there's a lot of drama around. A lot of people have gotten shot and killed around him. It's fairly crazy. I think he even started he was opening up a cheesesteak shop in Philly and it got burned down before it opened. You heard about this?
Heard about it, yeah.
Yeah. When you heard Joey saying what he said about you and your dad, what did you think?
Well, I responded to that with respect to my dad. And I could only tell you this. I have made it a point. I don't fight with people on social media because I think it's beneath me to do that. I think it's beneath all of us to do that. That's number one. And I say this, if anybody has to say anything to me, I'm very public. Be a man, come say it to my face, and then we'll deal with it. But doing this on social media, it's childish, it's ridiculous, and what does it prove? I mean, it makes no sense to me. I have said this, Vlad, I'm not going to make my reputation by bad-mouthing others. I don't do it. I don't engage in it. I'll talk about Joe Biden. I'll talk about Kamala Harris because they're destructive to my country. I don't know them, but that's politics, and I'll get into that. But as far as name calling back and forth with people on social media, I don't engage in it. I don't intend to engage in it. And if anybody has anything to say to me, no matter who it is, come to me like a man, and we'll deal with it. I'm not afraid to talk to somebody. I'm not hiding. I'm very public. I'm out there. So anybody wants it from my old life or anything else, come and see me. We're not going to deal with it on social media. That's been my position, and I maintain that position.
So if Joey was in LA right now, he said he wanted to meet up with you in person, you would do it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Would you come alone or would you bring somebody?
I'm not afraid. I'm not. Why do I need anybody?
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
Why?
I bring security into situations that I think might be dicey. No, not you?
I'm not worried.
Really?
No,
You
not
wouldn't
at
bring a
all.
weapon with you? Nothing?
Not at all.
Okay.
And I welcome the situation. You got something to say to me? You know, you don't like something I did, or you have a beef with me? Come and talk to me like a man. Social media? What is that?
Well, you made a video. You said, Joey Merlino, don't flatter yourself.
Yeah, I responded. Let me tell you something. You want to say something about me, that's one thing. You say something about my father that is absurd and ridiculous, I'll defend my dad. And that's all I did. Because my dad, let me tell you something, there wasn't another stand-up guy like my dad in that life. I shouldn't say that. There wasn't anybody better than him. He's at the top when it comes to stand-up. My dad would not, he just wouldn't in any way, shape, or form ever do anything that was anti that life. That's my dad.
Right. You said that Joey wouldn't say what he said to your face or to your father's face.
No way. To my father? Absolutely not. And if he wants to say it to me, I welcome it.
Maybe we can get you guys on the same show. You down for it?
Like I said, you got something to say to me, say it to my face.
Well, look, it's not like you don't know guys like Joey Merlino, you know, in your past life. There are some people that are hardcore. Snitching is off the table no matter what. If you're a snitch, then I hate you. You know, you're dead to me. I don't want anything to do with you. I'm sure you know people like this, you know, that were very hardcore, because if you think about it, the whole premise of joining the Mafia was you agree not to snitch.
That's
right?
correct.
That's part of the initiation process.
Absolutely.
It's one of the pillars that holds these organizations together. So, you know, we talked about this before. You cooperated. It didn't put anyone in prison, but to a certain hardcore person from that life, it doesn't matter if you put anyone in prison, you still cooperated. So you can't really be that surprised that he's taking a stance like that, because from what I understand, Joey never cooperated. And he did a lot of prison time along the way because of that, right?
I have no idea what he did or he didn't do.
Right. I've never heard of Joey cooperating on any level.
I have no idea.
Right. But what I'm saying is you can't be surprised that he would take this stance.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, he could take whatever position he wants. It doesn't matter to me. All I'm saying is, if you have an issue with me, come like a man and talk to me about it, or do whatever you think you're going to do. Do it. But to get on social media and start, That's not me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to even retaliate. I'm not even going to respond to nonsense like that.
But you did respond, though, on your channel.
Well, I did because of my dad.
Yeah.
You know, that's off the table. Off the table. And I've never done that. But when you say something like that was so ridiculous and absurd about my father, I responded. That's my father. I love him. And that's it. One time, done. Okay? But like I said, if you have something to say to me or you got a problem with me, why do it on social media?
Do you think that the whole concept of snitching is really a trick that the guys at the top use to try to insulate themselves and send the lower guys to prison while they maintain their life outside and the money that they make?
No.
Really?
No, I don't believe that. Look, everybody's their own individual person. They do what they do at the time for whatever reason they have to do it. And this isn't something that the organization has developed, you know, for insulation, like you said. No. Everybody's different. They do what they do. Listen, Vlad, you know, I mean, this is explained 100 times already. It's old news already. I did what I did. I have no regrets on what I did. The bottom line for me is I don't care what anybody says. Bring me facts. Nobody ever went to prison because of anything I ever told anybody, and that's the bottom line. I struggled through a situation to make sure that wouldn't happen. The government has verified that. John Gleason verified it. He was the prosecutor for John Gotti. He wrote it in his book. Franzese took us for a ride. You know, Ed McDonald, the same thing. I knew what I was doing, and I suffered for it. I went back to prison as a result of it. But here I am, and I have no regrets with what I did. And that's the bottom line, and I didn't hurt anybody.
No, listen, I don't necessarily have a problem with this. You know, my thing is that if you decide to engage in criminal activities, you should expect that there's going to be cooperation when things go bad. Point blank, period.
Part of the life.
Human preservation. At the end of the day, go to white-collar crimes. You know, go to crimes that happen on Wall Street, insider trading. Everybody cooperates. Nobody holds their tongue. You've never heard of a Wall Street guy that's doing 20 years in prison because he wouldn't snitch on his friends. No. At the point the feds come, they go and open up their books and tell them exactly, you know, who did what, when, here's the receipts. You know, who else can I tell on to get a few years off my sentence? This is regular in any other world, but in the mafia and hip hop and so forth, people are expected to throw away their lives because of an ideal.
Well, you know, Vlad, it's not only that. And again, every case is individual. But there's times when that life doesn't treat the person the right way either.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. Listen, it's not all the honor and respect that everybody thinks it is all the time. And again, there's individual cases. People do things for different reasons. But there are people that I know that really got screwed. And they said, hey, why should I do this? I'm not one of those guys. I'm not copping out in that regard. When I say copping out, I'm not copping out for myself. But other people might have had legitimate reasons for doing what they did. And who am I to judge that? Okay, that wasn't my situation. I didn't say, hey, I'm mad at everybody, I'm going to get even. No, I knew what I was up against back then. And, you know, I did what I did for my reasons, not for anything else. I wasn't mad at the life. I wasn't mad at anybody, nothing like that. And I wasn't facing a zillion years in prison either.
Yeah.
That wasn't my situation.
Well, I feel people will just justify it the way they're going to justify it. Because I remember when I interviewed Sammy the Bull for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we talked about the whole situation, about how he was going to stay loyal, but then he heard recordings where John Gotti said they're going to put all the murders on Sammy. And then at that point, he said, okay, well, if he's going to turn on me, I'm going to turn on him. So he cooperated against John Gotti. Okay, I got it. But Sammy went on a world tour in terms of cooperating. he took the stand against all these different mafia bosses. I think Chin Gigante, he was involved in that case and so forth. I said, okay, well, I understand the John Gotti part, but all these other people who you took the stand against, they didn't turn against you. They weren't trying to put you in prison. They weren't trying to pin things on you. Why did you testify against them as well? And the answer was like, well, I was the only one that testified against them. I was just one of many people. So there's always going to be a justification for it. I've just given up trying to find some sort of, big truth in this whole thing. Everyone's got it, ultimately, I don't want to do life in prison. How's that?
Everybody's got their own reasons for doing what they do. Some are justified, others you question. But, hey, I learned long ago, who am I to judge?
Right.
I mean, look, I happen to be very fortunate. I was one of those guys for 20 years of my life, 20 plus years. I happen to be very fortunate to be where I am today. And like I said, I don't owe apologies to anybody. And I don't have to justify myself to anybody. And if people want to comment about, look, people take shots at me all day long. I know it. People want views. They mention my name. I mean, it's going to happen,
Right. That's social media for you.
And if you don't have thick skin, you shouldn't be on social media. You shouldn't be doing any of this.
No, you should not. Well, I interviewed Joe Baroni. Are you familiar with him?
I don't know Joe Baroni. No, I mean,
Right.
I don't know who he is.
They say he was the longest running mafia informant ever.
I mean, I heard that, but I didn't know him. Yeah.
He actually said that, when I brought your name up, he said that you're the greatest mobster of all time.
Well, thank you for that. I don't know about that, but...
Yeah, I mean, we went into his whole story, I mean, what's interesting, what I learned from him is that when you become a cooperator with law enforcement, you don't decide when it's over. Once you're a cooperator, they could keep you out there for years.
Yeah, I believe
if
that.
They want to.
Yeah.
When they're done with you is when they're done with you. You can't just say, okay, I gave you that guy, I'm done. No, you're not done. Unless you want to go back to prison right now.
Yeah.
You're going to stay out here and keep working for us. And then you might, but when you cooperate, you're not even guaranteed for them to clean your record or even not do any prison time. A lot of times people cooperate and will still get a bunch of prison time. It's not really up to you. I mean, they could put in the recommendation, but the judge could say no.
Right.
I don't agree with it. He said something interesting because Sammy admitted to 19 murders, but he said the number is actually 23. He said he was locked up with a guy named Frankie Smith. You know who that is?
No.
And I guess he told him about these two brothers that Sammy allegedly killed. So they're saying the number is actually probably higher than that. I mean...
What does it matter at that point?
At that point, 19 or 23, still a lot of murders. And I guess Sammy is actually selling a shirt that says Sammy Bull 19. You heard about this?
Listen, Sammy's a friend of mine. We became friends. We had our issues way back when. But listen, I know his family. I interviewed his daughter on my site, and it was one of the best interviews I've ever had. I happen to have a lot of respect for her. She was very honest, very sincere. His son, Gerard, I happen to like him very much. And Sammy and I, Sammy's recently become a Christian. He's gotten baptized.
Oh, really? That's a new thing?
Yeah. Well, It's not new. I mean, it's...
Sammy the Bull found God. All right.
And it's sincere.
Okay.
It's sincere.
I believe you.
Yeah. And listen, anybody can change their ways. Anybody can transform afterwards. And I believe that. And again, I'm not judging Sammy. But we're friends. I think I got to understand him. He understands me. And I spoke to him an hour ago before I got here.
Okay.
Yeah.
You told him you're coming to Vlad TV?
Well, we actually were doing a podcast together. Anthony Ruggiano.
Okay, yeah.
He said it was his birthday. And would you please come on and just me, you, and Sammy will rap. So we did that for an hour on my drive here.
Nice.
Yeah. So I told him I was coming to see you. And he said, he won't call me anymore because he got a bigger check than I did.
Wait, who got a bigger check?
Sammy did.
Sammy got a bigger check than you?
Yeah, me, is what he said.
Well, I think initially, yeah.
It was just a joke. I mean,
initially he probably did, but he he has a much more graphic story than you do.
Yes, he does.
If you think about it, no offense. I think you'd rather have your story than Sammy's story.
I have,
and make a few less dollars.
I have no problem. I'd love to see Sammy earn money. I have no problem with that at all.
Right.
But listen, you know what? He's working hard. He's doing his thing. I'm going to be with him again Monday and Tuesday. We're going to Patrick Bet-David is doing a big election night thing at his place in Florida.
Okay.
So Sammy and I will be there, and we'll give our opinions on the election and so on and so forth.
Well, my last interview with Sammy, we talked about how in his heyday, he considered trying to extort Donald Trump. But once he looked into the whole situation, Donald Trump had like Secret Service guys with him, and he was protected and insulated, so he never even tried because he knew that there was no way that he could pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald Trump actually posted this on his Instagram.
Yeah, I saw that.
And his Truth Social.
Yeah.
You try to press up on Trump, but you could never get to him.
Yeah.
Because he had ex-FBI agents all around him?
All the time. And I tried a couple of times to press him and make arrangements where I could work with him and earn with him. I did that with other big contractors. I had the power of the unions. I could do all kinds of little things, but I couldn't get to him. He wouldn't bite. He just wouldn't bite. He didn't want to do anything like that. And there was layers of people in the middle. One of my guys said, we'll go up to the office. I said, we'll go up to the office. Everybody around him is an ex-FBI agent. We'll go up to the office, we'll get cuffed, and we'll go right to prison. So forget about Trump. He's a legitimate guy. He don't want to do it. Forget about Trump.
Yeah. That was a very surrealistic day for me. I'm like, the ex-president just posted my interview with Sammy the Bull of all people.
Yeah. That was good.
Sammy got a kick out of me. He's in the comments like, you'll always be my president. I love you. Something like that. I forgot the exact words, but it was something to that extent. Yeah. So I know Sammy got a huge kick out of me.
He did.
So
he should.
You owe me one, Sammy. I had Trump post you. All right. Yes. Next interview should be free.
Absolutely. He owes you one.
He owes me one. That's right. That's right. Well, we did an interview recently with Chuck Zito. Do you know who that is?
Yeah. I did time with Chuck.
Angel. What's that?
I did time with Chuck.
You did time with Chuck?
Yeah.
Right. He referred to you as a rat as well. Chuck is a hardcore guy. Once again, a person from that particular life that has never cooperated and considers anyone with any level of cooperation a rat. It is what it is. And he did say he was locked up with you at one point. What was your relationship with Chuck during that time?
We got along great. First of all, he wasn't part of our life at all.
No, he wasn't a Mafia guy. He was a Hell's Angel.
Yeah, he wasn't part of our life at all. We got along great. Yeah, we spent, I think, I'm trying to think back because it was in MDC, New York. I think we were in the same cell together for about 4 months. You know, we were on, I think on the 7th floor, if I'm not mistaken. We got along great. I mean, he was there on some drug beef out of Japan. I think he was, I don't remember the exact thing. But yeah, we got along great. Good friends at that point.
Right. Does it bother you that people you were cool with at one point disparaged you later on?
No.
No?
Because he doesn't know what he's talking about. Let me tell you, nobody really knows what went on with me, and it's nobody's business. But you know what? Here I am. I'm 73 years old. I'm alive. I'm very public. I don't have any enemies in that life that I know of. People talk, but, you know, for whatever. Social media does that. But I know it went down at that point and how it went down and why it went down. And I knew this. Nobody was ever going to get in trouble because of anything I ever said. And that was very clear with the people that it had to be clear with. And that was it. So, again, I don't have to get into the details or specifics of what went on at that point. It's nobody's business. But you know what? People want to talk, they can talk. It doesn't... I'm so far past that stage, Vlad, it doesn't matter to me anymore.
Like I said in the beginning, man, when it comes to cooperating and so forth, I don't have the same, feelings and principles as a lot of the people that I interview. Just is what it is. I don't have to agree with the philosophies of someone that I sit down with. I'll hear what they have to say, but like I said, at the end of the day, if you have an opportunity to carve years off your sentence and you're not putting anyone in prison?
Well, I want to make this clear, too. I didn't carve one day off my sentence. I did every day of my time. When I initially took my plea, I took my plea straight out. The only reason the government gave me a plea is because I beat them 5 times prior to that. I beat them in a huge case with Giuliani, where the principal witness against me in the new case was the principal witness in the last case, and we destroyed him on the stand. We killed their witness. So they were
Not
eager.
actually kill their witness.
No, I mean,
You gotta be careful with this type of
destroyed their
language
witness
here.
on the stand. No, he went to jail and died later on.
Okay.
Natural causes. But
There you go.
But and they were afraid that they were going to lose again.
Yeah.
So they gave me a deal. There was no cooperation, nothing. It was a straight out deal. 10-year prison sentence, $15 million restitution, $5 million in forfeitures. That was it. And it was basically a white collar crime. I defrauded the government out of tax on every gallon of gasoline. There was no murders. There was nothing in it. That was the case. So they gave me a deal, figuring I was going to come out of that life and they'd get me again. Now I have a conviction, because I didn't have any convictions at that point.
Yeah.
They didn't know that my plan at that point was to get away. That's when I started the plan. That's why I took the plea. Because I fell in love with a girl. I wanted her in my life, and I didn't want to destroy her life. So I decided to take a plea, do some time, come out, go out to California, and stay away from everybody. That was my deal.
Well, you talked about this in I believe on one of your videos, is that you were rumored to have stolen $2 billion from the government.
That's what they said.
$2 billion. How much did they ultimately convict you for? In terms of the gross, not the net. But if they say how much you and everyone around you stole during that time, what were you convicted for?
Well, the number was, they said $2 billion, but...
They actually said $2 billion in the paperwork.
Yeah, it was
wow.
$2 billion.
Okay.
Yeah, that we did for over a 7 or 8 year period of
But
time.
when they say $2 billion, is that the gross amount? Meaning that, like, if you look at the total amount?
Yeah, it was the amount of tax money that was defrauded from the government.
$2 billion.
Yeah.
Okay. You're saying it's not a real number, though.
I don't think so.
No?
That was a lot of money. I'm not going to deny that. I mean, look, we were bringing in $1.8-10 million a week, because we were selling 500 million gallons of gas a month, and I had an operation on the East Coast all the way down to Florida. I got indicted in Florida too. I forget what the amount was there. I don't know, 100 million. I don't remember, but it was a lot of money.
Well, there was some interesting points that people brought up that they asked me to bring up in the interview.
Sure.
Someone said, ask about Champagne Larry Carrozza, who was involved in the gas scam, had a relationship with Michael Franzese's sister. It's speculated that Michael or his father was involved in his murder.
Okay. Let me clear this up again. Larry Carrozza was never involved in the gas business. Larry Carrozza was an undertaker, had zero to do with the gas business. The way that came out is because an informant, what is his name? Sal Machota, somehow concocted a story that Larry was involved in the gas business. Had zero involvement in the gas business in any way, shape, or form. He wasn't involved at all. And what happened there is, unfortunately, he had an affair with my sister. He was a married guy. He baptized my kid. I baptized his. So, paid the consequences.
He had an affair with your sister.
Yeah.
And then he got killed?
Yeah.
Did they ever find out who did it?
No.
Okay. So people are
They
speculating.
know I didn't do it. That's for sure. But and I didn't do it, and nor
Okay.
did my father. We had nothing to do with that.
But even if your dad did it, he wouldn't tell you.
No.
So,
Nor would I tell him.
right.
So,
But your dad is dead now, so you could talk about his crimes without implicating him in any type of way because he's gone.
my dad had nothing to do with that.
Okay. Who do you think did it, if you were just to guess?
I can't say.
Can't say. Here's another interesting rumor that came up in the notes. Have you heard of a guy named Tony Pizza?
From social media.
Right. So, this is a homeless guy that's been running around the mob tube claiming that he was a Gambino enforcer, sat in high-ranking member meetings, but I guess no one could actually verify it because they're all dead and gone except for you. And he claims that he actually got into a physical altercation with you when you guys were younger. But like I said, no one can vouch for this guy on any level.
I heard that. I honestly don't remember him. Now, when I say that, I mean, he's talking about an altercation that we might have had 40 years ago. So, I mean, I had altercations in my life. I don't remember this one in particular, but I'm not going to call the guy a liar. I mean, I think he said something outside of a club that I owned at the time I was involved in. I don't remember exactly what he said. I don't remember it, but I don't want to call the guy a liar. But I don't remember him at all, honestly.
Well, I mean, this world is filled with, like, people whose stories don't always match up very well. I've interviewed some of myself. I'm not going to go into any names, but I've had guys criticize me, you know, to my face over some of the interviews I've done. You have as well.
Yeah.
So you do your best to try to get authentic people with authentic stories, but ultimately, I can't check everything that everyone says.
No. And, you know, people say to me sometimes too, well, you know, there's nobody alive to verify that. Well, what do you want from me? I didn't kill him. I mean, I'm 73 years old. Most of the guys that I ran with were a lot older than me, and they're all dead. What do you want me to do? You know, that doesn't mean things didn't happen that I'm relaying. And let me tell you something, you know, the other thing too, sometimes you make a mistake. I mean, I'm telling sometimes stories that happened 40, 45 years ago. I mean, Thursday night, what's today? Is today the 30th?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow night makes 49 years ago that I got made. It was Halloween night, 1975. Now, do I remember everything that happened? You know, that's why I'm not telling a lot of mob stories anymore, Vlad, because I've told everything that I remember. I'm not going to make things up, you know. So I've been doing different things on my site with content-wise. Because what do you just keep telling stories? I've told everything that I know that I can remember, unless somebody stimulates something in my head and I say, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." But you do the best you could. You know, people are not alive.
He's going to do an interview with you on your show?
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be pretty epic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I say the whole One Direction thing hit close to home, there's also another situation. Your daughter's boyfriend died from an overdose of taking Adderall that was laced with fentanyl.
Yes.
And they found the body in your home?
Yes.
Were you around at the time?
No. I was actually on my way home from Chicago. I had a speaking engagement there. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning, somewhere Chicago time, maybe even a little earlier. And I have Ring on my phone. You know, you get a video when somebody's at your door. So the Ring video comes up, and I see paramedics walking in and out of my house. And I panicked. I said, what happened? You know, somebody got killed. You know, all crazy things started to come through my head because my daughter and my sister were there, and he was living with us because he was from Michigan, and he was living in a guest room of my house because he worked for me. He was doing all my video work on YouTube. And my daughter and him were, you know, planning on getting married. So what happened, I had spoken to him the night before because I was sending him someplace to do some work with our pizza company. And some reason, I don't know why, before he went to bed that night, he took an Adderall, and the Adderall was laced with fentanyl. And somewhere after midnight, he collapsed on the bathroom floor in our home and died. It was my daughter and my wife that found him in the morning, and that's what all that commotion was. And Vlad, I'll tell you, it was one of the most traumatic things, seeing what my daughter went through for 2.5 years after that. And a nice young man. I mean, just a very respectful, you know, young man. We golfed together. I mean, he was just a great kid. And to see that happen was just, it was horrible.
Look, I interviewed 5 people over the years that have died from fentanyl. Coolio, Gangster Boo, Aaron Carter, Mac Miller, and Rich Homie Quan, who was the most recent one. You know, I know some of these names probably don't sound familiar to you. You probably know who Coolio is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Aaron Carter was a big pop star during his day.
Yeah.
I did his last interview before he died. Fentanyl is different than really anything that I've encountered throughout my lifetime.
It's poison.
Yeah. I mean, I had a friend who overdosed and died off cocaine when he was 23. That's why I never touched cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't hear about these mass overdoses like you do these days.
No, not at all.
You know, and what makes it even worse is that when the people die from fentanyl, the drug dealers who sell to them, they get charged with murder. So, one less reason to sell drugs these days. You see what I'm saying? Like, you already had the problem of, you know, you're going to get a 5-10, year sentence for selling a bag of crack, under some of these laws in certain states. But now you got to worry about a murder on top of it? Why even do it?
Money. Why do they do it? Listen, I hate, for obvious reasons, I hate anything to do with drugs. And Vlad, I'll say this, and people, oh, Michael, all these people that think they know, that don't know anything, will come back. During my era in that life, we were not allowed to deal with drugs. We were told straight out, you deal with drugs, you die, period.
Right.
And I knew one guy that blew his brains out in a telephone booth because he got involved in a drug deal and was afraid that we were going to walk him in a room and he wasn't going to walk out again. He was one of my guys. Killed himself in a phone booth. I was on a plane heading to Florida when it happened. And
would he have gotten killed?
Quite possibly, yes. Yes. We were not allowed to deal with drugs.
But lots of Mafia guys were selling drugs.
Were they doing it on the side, on the down low? Come on, we're criminals.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys are some guys that couldn't earn their scratching a living out, they're going to deal with that stuff. They weren't allowed to, and if they got caught, they could be in severe trouble. And people say, oh, Michael, that's not true. What do you mean it's not true? What was the reason that Gotti acted against Castellano? Because they heard that his crew was messing with drugs. Yeah. So we weren't allowed to deal with it. We weren't the big drug dealers. The cartels put us to shame. We didn't have anything on that level whatsoever. And me, I would never touch it because I hate anything to do with drugs. Hate it because of what happened with my family.
Well, you said that you had a sit down at one point, right? Because certain people had a problem with, some sort of discrepancy over the gas business. And you said how your friend actually drove you to the sit down. You didn't realize you were being driven to a sit down.
Well, I knew I was going to a sit down, but I didn't know basically the seriousness of it. I had a talk with my father about it because we were supposed to go. He's the one that called me. He was on parole. And said, we got to go meet the boss. I said, let's go. What time you want me to pick you up? And that's when, no, we got to go separately. They want me in first, they want you in second. And I argued with my dad. We were both captains at that point. And I said, why are they separating us? Some ridiculous article came out in the Long Island Press.
Wait. You said you and your dad were captains, but your dad was an underboss.
No, he wasn't the underboss.
What was he?
He was a captain.
He never got higher than captain?
He was an underboss for Joe Colombo.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking
about. But that was prior.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
and then with Persico, he was a captain.
Okay, got it.
And I was a captain. And there was an article came out in the Long Island Press, I believe, that said I was becoming powerful enough to break away from the Colombos and start my own family. It was a fictional story. There was no truth to it whatsoever. They claimed we were making billions of dollars in the gas business and I had a powerful crew. Well, it got into people's heads. I didn't write the story. They wrote it. It was nonsense. It was not true at all. But so I get called in on this. And it was a bad setup that night. I mean, I believed that I could have gotten killed that night, yeah.
Well, your friend drove you to this meeting where you could have gotten killed. And I remember you talked about how you spoke to him afterwards and it was like, how could you have brought me to a meeting like this knowing what might have happened? And his response was, you would have done the same thing to me. And you said, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, basically. Well, what he said exactly, if it was the other way around, would you have told me? And I thought about it and I said, no. Life we lead, Mike. You know it as well or better than anybody. You grew up in it.
And this guy, he came in at the same time as you? He was a made man also?
Yeah. Yeah, Jimmy Angelina. He's dead now. You know how he died? They walked him into a room. He never walked out again.
What was it over?
I don't know. I was away at that time. This was afterwards, but I don't know. Some union thing, from what I understand.
Okay, well, speaking of unions, the ILA port strike. Now, there is a union boss behind this strike, Harold Daggett.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing some articles about how he was basically threatening to cripple the country with his strike, but then they show that he drives like a Bentley and lives in a mansion and that type of thing. And there's rumors, I'm not saying it's true, that he has alleged mob ties to the Genovese.
Right.
Have you heard this before?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's any truth to it?
That he could have had mob ties?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Why would I say there could be no truth to it when we had plenty of ties with guys in the union? Could be. I mean, I think he was indicted on it at one point, went to trial, but he beat the case going back several years. Yeah, and I did something on this. I just found it distasteful. He shouldn't have ever got up and threatened the American public, is what he did, basically. And said, if we don't settle this strike, you're going to have this and this and this and this. We're going through enough trouble in this country. People are struggling enough. I don't think that was the way to handle it. I understand you stand up for your membership. That's your job. But I didn't like the way he handled it.
Well, yeah, even the way that they kind of settled it, one of their problems was they wanted less automation at the ports.
Right.
And I'm like, you can't stop that. That's insane. You're going to stop technology. You're going to stop robotics. You're going to stop automation. Just so people can keep jobs.
Everybody's afraid of that now. Even the strike in Hollywood, in the industry. They're afraid of AI, replacing them. I mean, I understand it's a legitimate concern, but can you control it? I don't think so.
I think the whole thing is stupid. I spoke out against the Hollywood strike, even though I'm friends with actors and I interview actors. I just feel like, listen, you can't stop technology.
I agree.
When you and I were younger, when we would go over a bridge, we would stop at a toll booth, and there'd be a human being that took our $3 and gave us our change.
Right.
And then they let us go through the toll booth, and we went on our way. Now it's fast track.
Absolutely.
It's too bad that those people lost their jobs. I'm not happy that they had to go and collect unemployment and find something else to do with their lives. But that's just the way life works. At some point, technology, if it could replace a human and do a better job, more accurate job, and a cheaper job, that's what's going to happen. Right?
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes society is to blame. Listen, after COVID, you couldn't get people to go to work.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies suffered as a result of that.
My company suffered.
Hey.
I remember when I announced that my New York staff had to do more time in the office, multiple people quit.
Yeah, they didn't want to do it.
I didn't even say every day. I say come in 2 days a week.
I know. Listen,
people quit.
I had pizza stores and we couldn't get people to come to work for $17, $18 an hour.
Yeah.
Didn't want to work.
Right.
They were getting a government check. Why do I got to work?
Yeah,
and unfortunately, that hangover has continued.
Yeah.
So now companies are saying, we're not going to let that happen to us again. So, automation.
Listen, I understand people like to work from home rather than come into an office, but you have to run the company the way you're going to run a company. And if you feel that the company will be run better by having people come in either full-time or part-time into the actual office, that's what you have to state. And if a person has a problem with it, unfortunately, you have to keep the same rules for all your employees. So you can't say, well, I'll make an exception for you, but everyone else has to come in.
Exactly.
No, that's not how life works. No, I can't do that.
I agree with you.
There's a bigger picture. So unfortunately, one person quit right off the bat, and another person quit a little while later, and that's okay. Ultimately, we find other employees that now do a good job, and, those people, we still have good relationships with them, some of which, we've hired as contractors to come back. But ultimately, we had to put our foot down and say, these are now the new rules.
I agree.
COVID, allowed this to happen, but now COVID is over, so now the rules have to slightly change. And, not everyone likes that. People get used to living a certain type of lifestyle and so forth, and I get it. Well, we spoke about pink cocaine recently, and that seems to be one of the things that are mentioned in the Diddy case. And you've spoken about this on your channel. Now, I know you didn't go to any Diddy parties or anything of that sort, but you have talked about this overall case. And this case is a RICO, which is interesting to me because Diddy seems the only person that's actually charged. Can you charge a RICO with just one person?
It'd be really hard because, well, I guess not if they're charging him, but I guess you can. But, you have to be part of a criminal enterprise, obviously. I don't know of anybody else, I'm not saying it's never happened, I don't know of anybody else that's been singularly charged with RICO without having any co-defendants.
Yeah.
But listen, I'm sure they know what they're doing with the statute.
I mean, what do you think about the whole Diddy case overall?
I think it's disgusting. I can't help this, Vlad, but I always go back to my former life. And I say to myself, how did they allow something like this to go on for 20 years? The only way they can allow it to go on for 20 years is that the right people are involved in it that can keep everybody else away, meaning the government, law enforcement. Because how do you let it go on? We couldn't last 5 minutes in something like this if they knew about it. We meaning me and my former associates, Cosa Nostra. And yet they get away with this garbage for 20 years, abusing women, abusing children. It's
the children part. There are civil lawsuits around it, but there's no criminal case around children.
I know,
Diddy.
But there's enough coming out, to saying that it really did occur. I mean, I've heard some inside things. I'm going to leave it at that because there's no sense in revealing something that was just told to me. Let's put it this way. But some of the things that I've heard that went on, how do you allow this to go on publicly like this for so many years?
Well, the trial hasn't happened yet. There's been no pleas.
Innocent until proven guilty, no doubt.
Innocent until proven guilty. I understand that Diddy was very sexually adventurous. He liked to pleasure himself while his girlfriend, had sex with other men. And there was drugs at these parties, which he took as well. Mm-hmm. Did he make other people take the drugs? I don't know.
It's the allegation.
That's the allegation. I've been to enough Hollywood parties to know that no one makes you take drugs. They make them available. If you want them, you could take them. If you don't want them, you don't have to take them. No one's shoving your face into a plate of cocaine. And, he's facing life in prison right now. He's charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, and kidnapping. He's pled not guilty to everything. Were you surprised that his bail has been denied 3 times?
No.
Why?
In a case like this that's so public, the big mistake was him, smacking his girlfriend around in the hotel. I think
right, but that was past the statute of limitations. He's not being charged with that.
No. But I think public perception because of that happening.
Yeah.
And then everything. From what I understand, that's what stimulated the real, stepping up the investigation on him.
Well, the lawsuit.
Yeah.
The Cassie lawsuit, when you saw those details, and then I've interviewed people like Roger Bonds who were named in the lawsuit, who's the bodyguard, and he confirmed that a lot of this stuff actually happened. The stuff that he was mentioning actually all happened. And yeah, like I said, law enforcement is reactive. Suddenly you have all this publicity over these alleged crimes. The FBI is like, hey, wait a minute. Let's look into this a little more. Let's raid some homes. Let's get a grand jury together. Let's put together a case.
And that's what they did. And, probably they, I think there's 2 reasons why they hold you without bail. Danger to community and flight risk. And they may see him as both.
Well, yeah. There was a girl that was signed to him that he called 128 times before she made a public statement, which was on his behalf. So they see that as witness tampering.
Yeah.
That's something you can't do. Being, witness tampering like Diddy or trying to be a flight risk like Lil Durk, booking a whole bunch of flights. Mm-hmm. I think his lawyer, Durk's lawyer, says something like, he wasn't trying to flee. He just wanted to see if there was an indictment or not. So he booked a plane ticket just to test the waters.
Can't get out of that.
Yeah, you're not getting out of that. I mean, nobody's stupid. You know, like nobody's stupid in these situations.
And listen, you know, the guy's got a lot of money, and he, you know, if they think he has the potential to influence witnesses, you're not going to get bail on that.
I mean, have you seen actual witness tampering in the Mafia?
Have I seen it?
Yeah.
I mean, I know of times when it could have happened, yeah.
That's why he was a Teflon Don, because he kept beating cases, not because he was beating them, but because they were paying off jurors. I think Sammy the Bull was involved in some of those.
I think he said he did, yeah.
Yeah. So you got that. I mean, that's really blatant. But witness tampering in general is usually a little bit more subtle. If you got someone, they could potentially change their story or whatever else, they get paid under the table. I mean, would the Mafia, would they actually pay off witnesses, or would they just get rid of witnesses?
No, I mean, listen, if the government has the ability to offer the world to somebody that would cooperate, why shouldn't a defendant go out and be able to speak to a witness and say, wait a second, you know, let's go over this, let's talk about
Right,
this.
but that's illegal.
I know, but I'm saying, why should it be illegal? The government does it all the time. They give you the house. They give you anything you want. Just cooperate with us. And you know what? And don't think that people don't lie as a result of that.
Yeah.
You know, it happens. So what I'm saying is, it's one thing if there's a potential witness that's part of the discovery, and this witness is part of the discovery, and you're going there to get them to try to change their testimony, truthful testimony. But it's another thing if you're going, hey, why are you doing this to me? What did I ever do to you? And you have a conversation or whatever. You invite him into your lawyer's office. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, you have the right to defend yourself when you're indicted or charged.
Look, but we all know that the laws are not equal for the prosecution and the defense.
Of course not.
If you lie to a law enforcement person, that's perjury. You can go to jail for it.
If you lie and it doesn't help them. If you lie and it helps them, no problem.
Right. But you could be charged for perjury for lying about something, right? That's an actual criminal act.
Correct.
On the other side, though, when you're being interrogated, a police officer can meet with you and say, your co-defendant just told me that you were the trigger man and he's going to cooperate against you, and you have one chance to save yourself. Tell me everything. Mm-hmm. Knowing that your co-defendant hasn't said anything and asked for a lawyer. But they're legally allowed to lie to you to coerce a statement out of you. When you think, isn't that like a fruit from a poison tree, you know, kind of situation where you get someone to cooperate based on a lie, they're scared, they're worried about, I didn't do anything and this person's about to lie on me, so let me come up with something to get out of this. But no, whatever you say is now an official statement that can be used to indict you and them. But it's all based on a lie and it's all totally legal.
Absolutely.
I hate that part of the law.
Well, they're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
I know. And that's why I said, why shouldn't you be able to go to a witness and talk to him? Say, hey.
I agree.
I mean, you know, listen.
Well, you can. Well, I mean, but
you gotta be able to defend yourself.
Depose. Can't you depose a witness?
You can, yeah.
Yeah.
You can.
And you could cross-examine a witness, so that's legal, but you're not allowed to talk to him beforehand.
That's what they say. And why not?
Yeah.
That's not witness tampering. If you're going to somebody and say, why are you saying this?
I don't feel like jails really rehabilitate people. I don't think that jails release people back into the public as better people than they came in. Would you agree? You know, I've only done a couple of days. As someone who's done years in prison, do you think that people come out better after prison or worse?
No, I think rehabilitation to me is equals to wearing somebody down when they just said, I had enough and I don't want to do this again, so let me try to lead my life the right way. They don't rehabilitate you in there. You just like had enough. And guys that have done a lot of time, that's kind of I don't want to do this again. That's kind of it. But as far as people that do time and be rehabilitated because of the prison experience, it's I used to tell guys in there. They used to come to me and say, hey, you know, Mike, next time I commit my crime, I know how to do it. I said, really? Yeah. How'd you learn that? Everybody in here got caught. You know, how did you learn it from somebody that got caught? You know, and they don't want to rehabilitate you. They don't want to. Trust me. I mean, you know, prison is a business also. And they, you know the hypocritical thing? I spoke once in front of the Senate staff on it was an anniversary of 9/11. Talked about prison reform. And I said to them, you know, why don't you want to rehabilitate people? These are your constituents. I said, don't you want them to come out and not be a threat to the community that you reside over again? You should rehabilitate people in there. The punishment is being in prison. It's not being punished again while you're in prison. It's being in prison, separated from the people you love, taking your freedom away. You should rehabilitate people in there so they don't do it again. They don't wreak havoc on your community again. But they don't think that way because they don't care.
Yeah, I mean, personally, you would think that, for example, if you look at all the prisoners that are locked up right now, a good percentage of them probably don't have high school diplomas, right?
Correct, yeah.
I think you could tie education to the percentage of people that go to prison, right?
Yeah.
You could say that a high school dropout is more likely to end up doing crimes to support themselves because they don't have a high school diploma, they don't have the education, they may not know how to read, they may not know how to do math. So they're more likely to do a job that doesn't require any of those skills, and therefore they're doing crime, right? Why not require everyone who gets locked up who doesn't have a high school diploma, they have to get their GED in order to get out?
I agree with that.
And if they do it, they could shave some time off their sentence. But if they don't do it, they get more time until they actually get it, get their diploma. Doesn't that seem like an obvious thing to do that will better society as a whole? So now you have a person that gets out who knows how to read, who knows how to do basic math, and has a high school diploma. So when a job asks for that, they can show them that.
I agree with that being a requirement, you know, in the minimum, you know, learn how to read and write, you know, get an education. But they don't want to rehabilitate you in there. It's all a farce. They don't care about that.
You've talked about seeing rapes in prison?
Seeing rapes?
Or hearing them?
I didn't actually see the rape, but yeah, I heard about them.
So you hear guys getting raped in cells down the hall?
No. I don't think I ever said that. I know of situations when it happened.
Okay,
but
so you know of rapes that have occurred.
Yeah.
You've never actually seen or heard them.
No.
And I've heard all types of different stories when it comes to this. I've heard never happens. This is just, you know, with the movies. And a lot of times the guys are already gay and they're doing consensual sex. But I've heard very different stories also. I remember this guy, 1090 Jake, who's a regular on my show. You know, he said a story where a bunch of guys were put in a cell together and a bunch of them were like brand new. They were teenagers, whatever else. One guy goes to the bathroom, you know, to take a number two, and one of the other inmates comes in with a knife and just says, turn around, don't even wipe, or else I'm going to stab you. You know, take your choice. You want to get stabbed or do you want to bend over? Don't even wipe. Like, you know what I mean? Like a horrific type of story, or how older guys would gang rape younger inmates and stuff like that. Based on what you saw, was it as bad as people describe it, or was it more people who are actually gay who are having consensual sex?
Yeah, more people actually gay. But understand, that would happen more in a state prison than in the federal system.
Right, the state, I heard, is always worse.
Yeah, they crack down on that stuff. And the state, I don't know, I didn't do state time. I only did state jail time. So I didn't do prison time. But it was more like you said. I mean, look, I went into Phoenix, Arizona when I first started out. I got into my cell, and a guy comes over to me and says, you know, I'll do your laundry and everything else. And I knew he was gay, and he says to me, you know, I'm a girl, right? I said, I do. I said, but I'm married. I ain't interested, you know?
Wait, so you had a gay cellmate?
No. He saw me come in, so he came to my cell afterwards. He was on that tier.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll do your laundry for you. I'll do your ironing. And I said, that's okay. And he said, I'm gay, just like that.
He said, I know I'm gay, or I'm a girl?
Yeah. Oh, I'm a girl. I'm sorry. He said,
Meaning
I'm a girl.
He's willing to take it.
Yeah. So he was coming on to me. And I said, I appreciate that, but I'm married. The funny thing is, a day later, this guy got stabbed. And it was over a love affair with him, and I don't know the whole story.
You almost got caught up in that love triangle. If you would have taken him up on that offer.
The guy he got stabbed, or one of his lovers got. I don't know what happened. It was a big disturbance on the yard, and he or she was involved in it. But I said, listen, I'll do my own laundry, and I'm cool with that, so no problem.
Oh yeah, I hear that there's actual, and I've talked to people I've interviewed that have actually seen full-blown weddings in the yard with inmates throwing rice and the makeup and the dress.
I didn't see that, but there were a number of, we called them he-she's back then. That they're in there. Let's put it that way. But in the federal system, they don't tolerate that. I don't know about the state, but in the Fed, they don't tolerate.
So having gay relations is considered illegal.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In the federal system, 100%.
Well, Diddy's trial date is May 5th, 2025. Based on what you've seen about the legal system, do you think that's actually going to happen, or do you think that's going to get pushed back?
You never know. I mean, look, he can demand a speedy trial. Huh. In the federal system, you can demand that, so they can only put it off so long.
But doesn't that actually hurt your case?
Sometimes not. I mean, the more times the feds have to work on things, the more people they can bring to the table to be witnesses. But it all depends. I mean, when I got in, I demanded a speedy trial, and they had to give it to me within 90 days. I mean, we made we came to a plea agreement at that point, but it all depends on your situation. Who knows?
Do you think that Diddy will be safe if he actually does go to prison? He goes to the feds. Do you think that he'll be extorted? Do you think that someone might try to stab him? Or do you think that he'll be placed in an area where he'll be completely safe and protected?
I could see him having some trouble if there really were underage kids involved. When I say underage, under the age of 18, 17, 16, whatever, I could see that being a problem for him. Yeah.
He could pay off a lot of people, though. He's got the money to have a whole crew of guys on payroll around him protecting him.
Yes, yeah. Guys that are doing life don't care sometimes about that. What are they going to do with the money if they have no money on the outside? But
there's commissary and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because look, I've had people describe it to me. They're like, look, you got a guy doing life. 10, 15 years in, nobody's writing him anymore. Mm-hmm. Whatever girl was waiting for him has long abandoned him. His mom and dad have died. His brothers and sisters have gone on with their lives. No one's sending them anything. So $1,000, you could live a whole year off commissary off that. Yeah. Suddenly you got access to Oreo cookies and all this stuff that you haven't had in the last 5 years. All you got to do is stab somebody? Okay. That sounds good. What are they going to give me, double life?
That's right.
They put me in the hole for a little while? Who cares?
Let me tell you what people don't understand. I mean, John Gotti learned this lesson. Other guys learned this lesson. Guys that are doing life without, you better behave yourself with them. They don't care who you are.
Gotti got beat up in prison, right?
He did, yeah.
I heard about this.
They don't care who you are. What are you going to do to me? Give me another life sentence? They don't care. You got to be respectful in prison. My dad told me 3 things. He said, when you go into prison, remember these 3 words because they'll go a long way. I said, what's that, Dad? Please, thank you, excuse me.
Oh.
He said, the reason you bump into somebody, excuse me, right away. You want to cut the line with somebody, your friend is on there, do you mind, please? If somebody gives you something, thank you. Everybody in there that never got any respect on the street, they want all the respect in there. And any little thing, they're showing off to somebody that, I'm a man. You can't do this to me. Respect. So the best way is just be respectful to everybody. I never had a problem in prison. Never. Never had an issue with anybody. But guys that want to push their weight in there, you better be careful who you're doing because they don't care who you are. And rightfully so. What are you going to do to them in there?
Well, you actually went to a prison. and you interviewed the son of Sam, David Berkowitz.
Yes.
Now, this is a very old crime, so I just want to get everyone up to speed on this. The son of Sam pled guilty to 8 shootings that happened in New York City between 1976 and 1977. 6 of those ended up as fatalities. So within 1 year, he killed 6 people and shot 2 others. There's also a bunch of arsons that happened around the city, which police say, he was part of, but he was never convicted for. And essentially at the time, it was the biggest manhunt in police history. They were trying to find him. He would send them letters, mocking them and so forth. And when he finally got caught and confessed, he said that he was actually following orders from his demon dog, which he later on said that he made it all up. But he said that his dog that was possessed by a demon was telling him to kill people.
Right.
He got sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences in the state with parole after 25 years. He's still currently locked up, though.
Yes.
Is he ever getting out?
I doubt it.
So even though he's eligible for parole, I guess killing 6 people?
Yeah, he actually refused to go to the parole board. And because he said, I'm never getting out. What am I going to the parole board for? But they told him that he needs to go to the parole board. And so he goes just because he's supposed to go. But he doesn't believe he's ever getting out. He doesn't petition to get out. He's not even trying to get out. He says, I know this is the rest of my life.
Well, I mean, do you think he should get out?
I want to be careful on that because he doesn't believe he should get out. He said it straight out. So what does that mean? Does that mean he might once again have a propensity to do something wrong? Look, people that are a danger to a community, you got to protect the community. I'm not saying that he is. I had a very good conversation with him. We were there together for 2 hours. I believe that he was sincere, in his, he's a Christian now.
Right. He converted. Well, because originally he would say, he said he was a devil worshiper, right?
Well, he was involved with some Satanists for a while, yes.
Right. He was part of a Satanist cult.
Yes.
Was the cult actually involved in those murders, or was he just acting by himself?
No, he acted by himself.
Right. But now he's a Christian.
Yes.
And according to your beliefs, if you're a born-again Christian and you give your life to Jesus Christ, those 6 people that you killed gets erased and you're still allowed to go to heaven.
Again, this is why I don't know why this is a difficult concept. I understand that, but the foundation of our belief is that Jesus Christ died on the cross for the forgiveness of all sins. Period. That's why he was sent here. He was sent here to take the weight of the world and the sins of the world on his back, on the cross, I should say. And so when he died, he took the sins of the world with him. Now, there is obviously, as a Christian, we have to repent of our sins, sincerely repent. Remember this, Vlad, I've said this all the time. I pulled a lot of scams in my life, in my former life. You can't pull a scam on God. He knows your heart. You can't just say you're sorry for something, you're repenting or whatever because you want to show the world that you're a good person now. That doesn't work. God knows our hearts. Let me finish.
Sorry, go ahead.
So if you sincerely are sorry for your sins, and I believe David is, he's got one of the mother of one of the victims that communicate with him and ask and believe. I've seen the letters that she wrote him. And you accept Christ as your Savior, well, then your sins are forgiven. And that's what we rely on. And do I believe it? Yeah, I believe it in my case. And I believe it in David's case because I think he's sincere. He's got no ulterior motive. He's not writing books. He's not doing movies. He's not doing anything. The guy wants to go to heaven. And that's what he believes. And I believe it. And look, I'll say this, Vlad, I'm not the best Christian in the world. There's no question about it. I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. But my faith is rock solid. Nobody can tell me any differently based upon my research, my investigation, what's happened in my life, what I've seen has happened in other people's lives. This is what I believe. And we don't force our beliefs on anyone, and we don't try to turn anybody into a Christian. This is just what we believe.
Well, now you don't, but historically there has been some forced conversions, the Inquisition and so forth.
Of course.
Every religion has had some janky moments throughout history.
No question about it.
No one's proud of. I'm Jewish. We've had some bad moments in our
100%.
history. Muslims have had bad moments, and Christians have had bad moments. So
100%.
Yes, no one's forcing you to convert to a Christian right now, but at one time they would torture you until you converted to being
Well, that
a
was
Christian.
wrong. That's not true Christianity.
Right.
You know, I don't know what that is, but it's not
Yeah, I don't
Christianity.
know what that is either. Right. So, I mean, listen, we all make mistakes. I just don't know how killing 6 people in cold blood that didn't do anything to you, that you're murdering out of some sort of fetish. I don't know how. And okay, one of the mothers has forgiven you. Look at the other family members for that one particular person. I'm sure they're not quite as forgiving. And I'm sure you look at the other victims, as well as the shooting victims and so forth. I don't think there's a lot of forgiveness going on that side of the fence. That's all I'm saying.
I don't disagree. I told David, I said, David, if my child had been one of the victims, I don't know how easily I would forgive you. And I'm a Christian, but it's difficult. That's a hard thing to...
Could you do that?
Could I forgive him?
Could you have forgiven somebody that killed your kid?
I don't know.
You being the Christian that you are.
Yes, and I am a strong Christian. It would be, I know I would have to forgive that person according to my faith, yeah. But would it be difficult? Yes. But we're still human. We're not above humanity in our feelings and our emotions. But I know the right thing to do would be at some point to forgive that person. But it would be difficult. There's no question.
So, for example, I just interviewed Robert O'Neill. He was a Navy SEAL who went in and killed bin Laden.
Right.
Bin Laden orchestrated the biggest terrorist attack on U.S. soil ever.
Yes.
Right? Timothy McVeigh, I think, was number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And bin Laden was number 1. 2,000 or 3,000 people died?
3,000.
3,000 people died.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did they die, but they would jump out of the windows because the building was 2,500 degrees,
yes.
and they would rather jump out of a window 80 stories up than burn to death. Mothers, kids, nobody related to the military that had anything to do with any sort of war type of activities was in that building. And when I interviewed Robert, he felt very good about killing bin Laden. He felt like he was willing to put his own life on the line. They went into that mission knowing they might not come back. I mean, you're going into a foreign country with some helicopters to kill somebody. Imagine if Mexico came over and killed someone in San Diego. Like, this is a potential international incident. They were worried about Pakistan shooting down their helicopters. Pakistani police or the military coming in and getting into a shootout, everyone dying, potentially not even having the right home. They weren't completely sure bin Laden was actually at that house. But he felt that the right thing to do was to kill this person. But based on what you're saying, if he was a hardcore Christian, he would have to forgive bin Laden for what he did?
Let me be clear. Being unable to forgive somebody because you're human and your emotion is not sinful. I'm not saying it's sinful. So if somebody has a tremendous loss, like they did at the hands of Berkowitz, and they find it hard to forgive, it's one thing not to forgive. It's another thing to, I want to kill you now, or you should be condemned, or whatever. I'm not saying that in itself is sinful, but we know as Christians, we are supposed to be forgiving at some point. And that's not easy to do. I'm being honest, it's difficult. When you lose somebody that you love, it's hard, especially if it's a heinous crime like that. But the act of being unable to forgive that person doesn't necessarily mean that you're sinful, at least in my view, and I think Scripture backs me up on that. Because we're all still human. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. If you gave me the assignment to kill bin Laden, I'd go and kill him. And I'm a Christian. But you know what? In war, war is war. Just like now, what's happening in Israel. And you know, some people are saying, I'm getting harassed. Michael, why aren't you speaking up for the genocide that's happening in Israel? And I said, let me explain something to you. I believe in Israel's right to exist. And terrorists like Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah, they don't believe that. They want to blow Israel off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And I believe Israel has a right to exist. I believe those Palestinians, the innocent ones that are being killed, have a right to exist. Yeah. But it's war.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing. It's war. Nobody wants to see it happen.
Yeah, look, I'm Jewish, and I've been to Israel 3 times. I've also been to Palestine. And I've said that both parties are at fault in this situation. The Hamas attacks on October 7th were horrific, along with the kidnappings. And the response that Israel has done, you know, the heavy-handed response that are killing civilians, along with Hamas, is wrong as well. I'm not a fan of Netanyahu and so forth. But there are important facts here that a lot of people like to gloss over. And that is what you mentioned. Hamas does not want Israel to exist. In fact, they don't communicate directly with Israel because they don't consider them a sovereign country. They consider them occupiers. So you have to go through the Palestinian Authority to actually have a conversation with Hamas.
Right.
And Robert O'Neill said something very interesting in our interview. He said, if Hamas put down their weapons, the war would be over. If Israel put down their weapons, there'd be a genocide.
And that's what they've stated.
Yeah. From the river to the sea.
Yeah.
And I think that the problem is when you have all these college students, you know, free Gaza and everything else like that have never been to Israel. Have you been to Israel?
Yeah, twice.
Right. So you understand that Israel's not going anywhere. It's a first world country. It looks like California.
Exactly.
Right? There's billions of dollars behind it. It's not, you know, it's not, the old city of Jerusalem is just the old city of Jerusalem where there's dirt roads and stuff like that because it's a tourist attraction.
Yes.
Everywhere else, there's high-speed internet,
100%.
Skyscrapers.
Very sophisticated country.
Very sophisticated.
Very advanced.
It's not going anywhere. At some point, Hamas and Iran and Hezbollah need to just accept the fact that Israel is here to stay. There's too much infrastructure. It's there. You might as well try to figure out a way to work with them as opposed to figure out a way to just wipe them out because it's not going to happen.
But they don't want to work with them. They've stated it.
And that's the problem.
They don't want what do you call it? Two-something state. They don't want it.
They don't want a two-state solution.
Yes, they don't want a two-state solution. They've stated that.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I understand. You know, look, emotions are high on both sides of that. Yeah. But you know, that's my position on it, and I'll stick with it.
Yeah, and I'll stick with my position. But I've publicly said both sides are at fault. You know, at the end of the day, if someone from a different city came in and kidnapped my family, I can't blow up that whole city.
Right.
Right? I got to figure out how to go after the kidnappers. And if they're hiding behind citizens, I have to somehow figure out a way around this. I can't just bomb the whole building because one of them is there and there's 100 other kids and women and so forth around them. And I understand they're hiding behind the citizens, but you have to figure out a way around them. You can't just carpet bomb whole areas and expect the world to support you because it's going to be painted a certain type of way. So yeah, I'm not a fan of Netanyahu. I'm not a fan of how they're handling things, but I'm also, you know, anti, you know, Hezbollah, anti-Hamas, anti-Iran. And what's interesting is that when I've spoken to people like Eric Prince, who's the founder of Blackwater, who I interviewed recently, this is the guy who had the biggest private army in America at one point, who was stationed in all these countries. He said, without blinking, that Iran is behind all this.
100%.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, you know, without getting too far along into this, if we had a strong America and a strong president who would have stopped this, it would have never happened because Trump at least had Iran under control, had them broke.
I agree with this.
And Biden went in and made them strong, and they sponsored both of these, Hamas and Hezbollah.
Yeah,
I agree. It would have never happened.
Yeah, I agree.
So the bottom line is the United States is responsible for this war.
Partly, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree. I agree. No, Trump was definitely more hardline In fact, there was a major Iran general that was killed under Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I think there's actually like a price on Trump's
specifically, like a number of other things that this guy screwed up, and this is Biden's fault. You cannot have a weak America. It's chaotic around the world, and he's shown us that in the past 3.5 years, 4 years now. He's the cause of all of this. Bottom line, this guy needs to be thrown out of office and let him go out and enjoy the rest of his life. He's a treasonous guy. He sold his vice presidency. There's no question about it. Him and his son and his brother. He's treasonous. He's destroying us, what he's doing at the southern border, allowing you got Venezuelan groups that have taken over apartment complexes. Why didn't they go after these groups like they came after us? We weren't doing that to people in the streets. They're allowing this stuff to happen. He made a statement the other day that, Trump supporters are garbage. He thinks all of us are garbage. And that's how he's treated this country in the past several years. And this guy is the worst president in my lifetime for sure, maybe in the history of this country. And the woman that's following him, God forbid, I'm going to tell you this. If this woman becomes president, we are done. She is.
We'll see what happens.
She is incompetent. She's a laughingstock around the rest of the world. And I had to say my piece because you have a big platform. I've been saying it. People know.
I understand that some people are pro-Kamala, some people are pro-Trump. I understand both sides of it. I can honestly say right now, this is October 30th, 2024, as I'm saying it. I'm going to guess that Trump is probably going to win this election.
If it's not rigged, the election is not rigged, which they've been trying to do in 3 states already.
Okay.
If it's a legitimate election,
I don't want to get demonetized over this. I'm not saying that it's rigged. All I'm saying is, for example, when you look at just the media, Trump did an interview with Joe Rogan that had 38 million views on YouTube, and it's been shadow banned. I had a hard time trying to find it. I had to finally just go to Joe Rogan's channel and then click on it. Exactly. Because when you search on it, it didn't come up. And I remember he posted a video on it.
I know.
Which is why he posted on Twitter recently as well.
They shadow banned it.
And it got like 20 million views on Twitter. Whereas Kamala Harris, who we tried to interview, when I was talking to her media team this whole time, and they never granted us an interview, she hasn't had an interview over 1 million views. She did Club Shay Shay, got like 800,000 views after a day, whereas Trump is getting 37 million. She did Call Me Daddy, which got like 600,000 views. And I'm like,
she's a joke.
You guys should really do Vlad TV because we are, one of the biggest platforms. We have 6 million subscribers. We could actually give you an interview that's getting many millions of views. But instead,
how's she going to sit with an interview with you? She can't respond to any legitimate questions.
Well, and here's the thing also, that she was invited to do Joe Rogan.
Yeah, and she put stipulations on it.
She said she's not going to do it in Texas.
Exactly.
She's not going to do 3 hours.
Exactly.
You'd have to come to her. And he said, well, I'm not going to do that. Which to me was a huge mistake on her part.
Of course.
You just saw what Trump did on the same platform. Why not take advantage of this platform if you have an invitation?
She's afraid to answer questions. The woman is incompetent. She can't, even when they're feeding her and they're trying to give her soft questions so that she can answer properly, she can't do it. Could you imagine this woman sitting down with Putin or sitting down with the mullahs of Iran or anybody from China?
I could.
Is she kidding me?
I could. I'm not anti-Kamala. I actually think Kamala is potentially a good president.
Oh,
but
Vlad.
That's where me and you could disagree. Me and you could disagree on this. Me and you could disagree, and we could still be friends.
All right. We're good for it. You know what? And that's how it should be. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to quote somebody that
I understand you feel strongly about it, and I respect your opinion on it. I don't bash people who are pro-Trump.
I'm going to quote somebody, and you'll understand what I'm saying. Bill Parcells. You know who he was?
Yeah.
Legendary coach, New York Giants. Right. And one day they were flattering him with everything and all this good stuff. And he turned around and he said, my friends, we are what our record says we are. Period. And that's all you have to say in this whole election. You are what your record says you are. This is Kamala Harris's record and Biden, and this is Trump's record. That's it. You don't have to go any further than that. He was president for 4 years.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say this before we get out the topic. Historically, vice presidents have done nothing. So you can't say what her record is as a vice president under Biden, because Biden's track record under Obama was nothing as well. Vice presidents just sit there unless it's time for them to become president because the president gets killed or dies.
But she has a record in politics. She has a record as attorney general. She's made statements. She was the border czar. She's responsible. And she said she was the last person in the room all the time when Biden made a decision. That makes her an accomplice, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but she's not making those decisions. She's just there. She's just
Glad
in the
she's
room.
incompetent.
She's just in the room.
And
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Gene Borrello, who I had on my show recently, you had on your show also.
Yes.
Dissed you at one point.
Yes, he did.
Yes. And you had him on the show anyways, and you talked to him about dissing you.
Yes.
And he basically said, listen, I was just trolling. I was just trying to, get noticed and so forth.
I was pulling the old gangster trick. I was just trying to go for the top dog. You know what I'm saying? That's all. I'm just be real with you. It was like a little trick I had.
Yeah, I mean, Franzese was one of my biggest interviews.
Yeah, Mike Franzese is a good guy. I get
Very
along.
good guy.
It was just a little trick I was pulling when I got out.
Yeah, and when he had you on the show, he basically addressed what you said and said, whatever, no big deal.
Yeah, I was young and just being dumb,
Is it normal for you to, because I noticed I've noticed that I've gotten over some of these pettiness of like, oh, if you diss me, then I hate you forever. And I can have people on my show that have dissed me and so forth. Is it easier for you at this point where people have like badmouthed you on the internet and you actually have them on your show?
Several people have done that, and I've had them on my show, and they've said to me, Michael, this is why I did it. And I get it. I get the whole social media thing. Doesn't mean I agree with it. I get it. But remember this, Gene Borrello was born the year I went to jail. He was born in 85. I went to jail in 85. We didn't know each other. We had nothing to do with each other. Different crew that he was involved in. I understand this whole social media thing. The same thing with John A. Light. John A. Light badmouthed like crazy. His daughter died, unfortunately, a drug-related issue. I called him up. I said, John, listen, I understand what you're going through. We became friends after that. Look, I understand this whole social media thing, and Vlad, say it or not, I'm a pretty forgiving person. I really am. I mean, you got to really hurt me for getting me to be that upset with you. Let's put it that way. But guys saying things about me on social media, the other guy said it. You said it about my father, totally uncalled for, was never ever stated in his universe about my dad, and that upset me. But anything else, it's gonna be pretty hard to upset me, and I get it.
Last question. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Now, you've interviewed Mike Tyson, and he's interviewed you as well. You guys have a relationship, you guys have had dinner together, and so forth. There's a 30-year age difference between these two. Who do you have your money on?
Listen, I love Mike, and I can tell you this, he's training very, very hard. Mike still hits like a mule. There's no question about it. I'm not as familiar with Paul. I'm really not. I can tell you this, if Mike gets him early, he can hurt him. There's no question about it. But that 30-year age gap, look, I'm 73. I know what it is. I don't feel the same way as I felt, 20, 30 years ago. I would refrain from betting on something like this. But because if I had to bet, I would bet Mike. I'd have to, because he's my friend, and I love the guy, and I'd be rooting for him, so I'd hate to bet against him.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I have my money on Jake Paul, just because this is not the 21-year-old Iron Mike that was demolishing people. And I remember I interviewed Ken Shamrock, who is an actual champion UFC fighter, and he said that it's the equivalent of fighting someone in a wheelchair. He said it's not the same Mike Tyson, and so I have to defer to actual professionals in the field. I could say, oh, well, he does this, that, and third. No, let me talk to someone who actually has gotten in the ring at the highest level, and what do they have to say? Because it's, look, it's not a regular boxing match. Originally, it was supposed to be a real sanctioned boxing match that was going to be on the permanent records of both people.
Right.
Now, 14-ounce gloves instead of 10-ounce, 8 rounds instead of 12, 2-minute rounds instead of 3-minute rounds. So really, this is an exhibition match.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. But, listen, and most of the people that I spoke to in the industry, they all concur with that. You know, regardless, it is Mike, and he still has that power, but it's a tough job ahead of him. Let's face it. But like I said, if I had a bet, I bet on Mike because I couldn't bet against him. I'd either refrain or I wouldn't bet.
Yeah, I think the thing with Mike,
I wouldn't bet against him.
You know, and this is something I talked about with Evander Holyfield.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with Mike is that he scares you.
Yeah.
Right? He's got that scary boogeyman kind of persona about him. And I interviewed him and he got mad at me at one point and I was scared. You know, we talked about this in our last interview. I was literally scared that he was going to lunge at me and take a swing at me. Right? And, you know, I remember Holyfield's like, yeah, you know, he does that to a lot of people. He's like, I don't know why, but I think he likes to do that. He likes to mess with people a little bit. He's like, I don't do that. Holyfield's a really nice guy. I don't know if you ever met him before.
I met him.
Yeah, very nice guy. Very polite, like always talks about his mom.
Yes.
And what he said, though, was the thing about my 2 fights with Mike is that I had to show him in the very beginning that I wasn't scared of him because I wasn't. They had met up, you know, earlier in their careers. They had sparred together, whatever else. He said, I wasn't scared of Mike Tyson. And once Mike realizes you're not scared of him, that's a lot of his edge. Once he loses that you're scared of me edge, you have a very different fight on your hands. I mean, this is why he ultimately lost to Buster Douglas. Buster wasn't scared of him. Even though the odds were insane and whatever else, Buster was like, listen, my mom just died. I'm going all out. I don't care.
Flip side, when he got in the ring with Michael Spinks, Michael was practically shaking. And that didn't last, I don't know, 40 seconds into the first round. Yeah.
Exactly. So in that fight, if Jake Paul walks in scared of Mike Tyson, Mike's going to win. If he comes in saying, hey, this is an old man, I'm physically bigger than him, he's had his time, I'm the new champ right now, he's going to win that fight. And that's my prediction.
Well, listen, I mean, I'd love to see Mike win. I'm going to be honest with you. I really would, but he's got a tough road ahead against him. But hey, I believe in him. I mean, if anybody can do it, I think he can.
Yeah.
And I've talked to his trainers. He's training really hard.
Oh, I know. I mean, he injured himself at one point, which is why they had to push back the fight. The fight should have already happened.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's the 15th of November.
I believe
he's training very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see.
That's what it is. Michael Franzese, always a pleasure. Make sure everyone checks out your YouTube channel, which has been growing a lot of big clips out there, a lot of big interviews. Congrats on, you know, not a lot of people could start a successful YouTube channel.
Thank you.
And you've done it. So congrats on your success.
Thank you on that. And Vlad, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Till next time.
Great.
Peace.